Trooper A1, The Purple Blitzkrieg by Gabrielle Marie Kozak. Book 1 of the Trooper series. Narrated by the author. Chapter 9. Hours later, they were home again after a fruitless search throughout the entire city. Victoria told Maura to get a drink and go to bed. Completely unable to sleep, Maura listened as her mother phoned the police and then Mr. White. "No, we haven't found him since around 6 this afternoon. Yes, it's been 5 hours at least. I sent Maura to bed. She's terribly high-strung. I think she's asleep, thankfully," Victoria was saying. "I'm not," Maura thought to herself, listening with all her might. "I don't know yet whether or not to send Maura to school tomorrow. If she goes, she'll have to take the bus. I don't want her walking around in the streets without Connor. No, don't fly down here yet, especially if you're busy. I'll call you tomorrow and let you know if anything's turned up. If not, maybe you want to come. I don't know." Maura bit her lip. She didn't want to go to school without her twin. Not only would he be missing and she'd be worrying about him all day, but she'd be asked questions all day, a type of popularity that Maura absolutely hated. "Right. Good night. Love you, dear." There was a soft sound as Victoria put her phone down on the kitchen table, then a creak as she sat down in a chair. Maura pulled the covers over her head, tossing and turning alternately for about 5 long minutes, her mind filled with thoughts of her twin. It was only a long time later that she managed to fall asleep. Meanwhile, "It was a terrific success. He's completely ready. Congratulations on your victory, Dr. Arnu." That was the first thing he heard. The voice was far away and distant, but he sensed that the faintness was in his own ears. There was beeping. Slowly, the sounds straightened themselves out. He sat still. Something was wrong. He had no idea who he was, where he was, or what was going on. He remembered nothing. His breath started to come faster. "Perfect. Now let's have a look at our young friend, shall we?" This voice was hard and unemotional. Footsteps approached the chair. Pushing down the panic, he opened his eyes to a world he had never seen before. It was obviously a laboratory. At the far end of the room were some computers. One of them displayed a heart rate. Then there was a table, and it and everything on it was covered with a white sheet. On another, smaller table was a metal box. There were some things like metal wardrobes against the walls. 3 doctors were in the room, one at the computers, one writing something on a clipboard, and the last staring at him out of light blue eyes. By the door stood 6 security, dressed from head to toe in hard metal or plastic or something else. He couldn't tell. The doctors were all dressed uniformly with dark gray pants and a laboratory coat. The first 2 doctors wore medical masks and gloves, but the one who was looking at him did not. He was tall with dark hair. Now he looked down at himself. He was strapped in some sort of chair, dressed in the same sort of material that the doctors wore, dark gray tunic with elbow-length sleeves and pants. It struck him that what he could see of himself looked extremely muscular and well-built. He glanced up at the doctor, who was still watching him. He wanted to ask the question most prominent in his mind, which was filled with swirling thoughts, all of them screaming at him to fill the blank. But something was wrong with his self-control. He felt strangely half asleep. "Good morning, Trooper. How do you feel?" he was asked. Though busy with the rush of disintegrating questions, his mind processed an answer immediately. He felt limitless, ready to run a marathon, capable of anything. Unconsciously, his hands curled into fists, strong fists, that looked as if they had the potential to wreck metal. The only exception was his vague, indecisive mentality. He felt somehow powerless to process, but he could answer the question. "Okay," he said. His own voice, hesitant and boyish, sounded strange in his ears. "I feel okay." A smile from the doctor. "That's good. Do you remember anything?" "Do I remember anything?" he repeated dazedly. "No, I don't. Who am I?" he managed to make himself ask. "You, my friend, are Trooper A1, he was told. "I am Dr. Arnu. You are the first to be successfully given the T4 injection. Congratulations on becoming the first superhuman." The doctor's smile widened. "Unfortunately, I don't think your recollections of the past have stayed with you." "Superhuman?" Trooper echoed. Lyndon nodded. Instinctively, as if to test his supposed strength, Trooper tested the firmness of the bonds that held him to the chair. He felt as if he could break through them easily, but Lyndon's voice interrupted. "Don't mess around with that." Trooper relaxed his arms with a dull sense of surprise at his own cooperation. Gradually it came over him that his mind, wasn't really in control. It was the doctor's commands. Now Lyndon ignored him, walking over to the table with the small box. He pulled it around so that Trooper wouldn't be able to see the contents, and put his finger down on a portion of the lid. It sprung open. Trooper sat still in his passive position, seemingly ignored by Lyndon and the others. He had very little scope for movement with the straps located periodically around his arms and legs, and it struck him that it would be nice to get up and stretch his legs. He felt incredibly bored, with blood surging through his veins, and yet he sat there lethargically. The bands would be so easy to break, he could tell, but somehow Lyndon's order weighed him down. He sat there, moving nothing but his eyes. A clock on the wall read 7 in the morning, and he watched the minute's hand move across half an hour's distance. During that time, he grew continually more restless, the urge to break free and find out exactly what was going on growing. But it was only an urge. Somehow he was unable to act on it. By the end of that time, the 2 unintroduced doctors had finished whatever they were doing, and one of them walked over to the chair Trooper was in. Trooper followed him with his eyes as far as he could, until the doctor went behind his chair and hit a button. Something beeped for a moment. 190 pounds, the doctor remarked, the satisfaction plain in his voice. Very good. How much before, Dr. Lafferty? Lyndon asked, looking up from his box. Half as much, correct? Yes. Dr. Viator Lafferty came from behind the chair, and Trooper could see him nod. Half as much, about. Excellent. Lyndon stepped over to the chair, holding some kind of purple band in his right hand. With his left, he hit something on the side of the right armrest, and the straps on it retracted into the chair. Trooper's right arm was free. Lift it, Lyndon ordered. Trooper obeyed mechanically, and Lyndon fit the band around his wrist. There was a soft click as something locked. You can put your hand down now, Lyndon told him. Trooper did. Lyndon looked over him for a moment before nodding his head and hitting a few more buttons. All of the straps were retracted. Stand, came the command, followed by the unanimated compliance. Trooper looked down from a height of about 6 feet. There was a dim awareness that he had never been this tall before, or maybe he realized it was just that he didn't remember. Standing up gave him a strange, yet supreme, sensation of strength. His legs felt like new, though they wanted to be stretched, and to do that stretching, he had an odd feeling that he could run a marathon. His hair was in his eyes. He pushed it back with one sturdy, broad hand. He noticed that it was a light blonde, and it went just past his ears, longer than any of the doctor's. He wondered if that had anything to do with the T4, whatever that was supposed to be. You see, Lyndon asked him, watching his face closely. You do what I tell you, Dr. Peasy? The doctor by the computers turned around. He was short, with a worn and wrinkled face that spoke at least 40 years. You, Trooper, he addressed him. His voice seemed tired. Jump! Immediate submission. Lyndon's face broke into a giant smile, and he burst into laughter. The other doctors smiled as well. Now, he said when he could speak, we have one. Trooper A1. He pointed to the 6 security standing by the door. T, middle. 2 stepped forward. Doctor? Fight, Lyndon ordered, stepping away from the 3.